Hi guys, and welcome back to Love English. I'm Leila, and today we will be looking at collocations. Now, collocations are words that generally go together, that match. Sabrah in her last lesson gave you lots of tips on how to build your vocabulary and do it much faster. In this lesson, I'm going to focus on one technique to help you improve your vocabulary range and to sound more natural in English. We're going to be looking at collocations with have and take. Now, have and take are two very common verbs in the English language, and they are something called a dilexical verb. Dilexical. Now, you don't have to worry too much about that meaning, but basically, have and take, like make and do or give and get, are verbs that often take their meaning from the context in which they are used. So from the noun they are used with. So for example, you would have a coffee and have lunch. Now, lunch, what do we do with lunch? We eat it. So in this case, have takes on the meaning to eat. But with coffee, it's a liquid, so we drink it. And in this case, have is taken on the meaning to drink. I'm drinking a coffee, I'm eating lunch. But that's not how we say it. We use the collocation. I'm having lunch, I'm having a drink. This is natural English. And I'm sure in most of your languages, you will have collocations that make you sound more natural and fluent. Before we get started, don't forget to click that subscribe button and of course the notifications bell until it looks like this. You can also follow us on our social media, Facebook, Instagram and Twitter. Or if you're really interested, you can take a look at our new website, www.loveenglish.co.uk. Right, let's get started with the lesson. Have and take, or take and have. Collocations. So, collocations with have and take. We commonly use nouns like shower or drink with have and take. As I mentioned earlier, these are dilexical verbs. Basically, they take their meaning from the noun. Part of that meaning from the noun is taken out and put into the verb. And of course, we'd often put an adjective in front of these nouns. So for example, I had a cold shower. I took a long nap, meaning sleep. Now, sometimes you can use both have and take and the meaning doesn't really change very much. The most common difference between when to use have and take is British versus American English. In American English, we would usually say take a shower, take a bath, take a nap. But in British English, we're more likely to say have. Have a shower, have a bath, and have a nap, asleep. This isn't a big difference. And of course, if you do feel more comfortable saying take, that's not a problem. It doesn't change the meaning. It's more so you understand the difference in the way that we speak. So in American English, it is take that's most commonly used with things like washing, resting, eating or drinking. But we would use have in British English, and I'm going to give you those collocations in just a second. So in British English, we would say have a holiday. Are you going to have a holiday this summer? But in American English, we would say take, but not holiday, vacation. So, are you taking a vacation this summer? Are you having a holiday this summer? Exactly the same meaning, it is just a slight difference in how we express ourselves. So let's have a look at some nouns that can collocate with have. With food and drink, you can say have a meal, have breakfast, have dinner, have lunch. Be careful with those last three because you wouldn't use an article with them. You don't have a lunch, but you can say I had a lovely lunch or a big lunch. If there's an adjective there, then you can use an article. Otherwise, zero article. You can have a snack, a cup of coffee, or a cup of tea, or even have a glass of wine. We also use have for talking. This is my idea of talking. So you can have a chat, have a conversation, have a discussion, or have a talk. I had a great conversation with Sabrah the other day. With washing, as I said, more commonly, have with British English. To have a shower, have a bath, have a wash, have a scrub if you're really dirty. You can have a nap, have a sleep, have 40 winks. There's some slang for you. Or have a rest. And of course, have a holiday. You can disagree with someone and use have. Have an argument. Have a disagreement. Have a heated discussion. Heated means you're almost arguing. Have a quarrel or have a fight. You wouldn't take a fight. You would have one. Or hopefully you wouldn't have one. And that's it, I think, yeah. You can also use have with nouns formed from the verb. So you can have a look. Can I have a look at your car? Can I have a look at your homework? Just to check mine. You can have a bite. Can I have a bite of your sandwich? I'm starving. You can have a drink of water. You can have a listen. Have you had a listen to that new Ed Sheeran song? It's really good. Or you could have a swim. Do you fancy having a swim down the beach tomorrow? Now, in all these cases, have is not an auxiliary verb. It is the main verb in the sentence. So you don't need do or did, or have if it's the present perfect. So remember, if you have negatives or questions, you will need an auxiliary verb. This could be an error that you make. For example, we hadn't breakfast this morning. We hadn't breakfast this morning. We didn't have breakfast this morning. I have a talk with my teacher today. I have a talk with my teacher today. I've had a talk with my teacher today. I've had a talk with my teacher today. You have lunch at home most days? You have lunch at home most days? Do you have lunch at home most days? And of course, you can find have in many different tenses. For example, to have a baby. If someone's in the process, if they're pregnant or actually giving birth, you can say she's having a baby. She's having a baby. I'm having lunch. I'm having lunch. I'm having so much fun. Right, so those are a few collocations with have. I'm going to go through a nice long list in a minute after I explain take. Now, take you might think of as simply meaning to remove something from one place to another. I took my brother home. I took my brother home. Yes, it does have this meaning, but of course, as a delexical verb, when we put it with certain nouns, that meaning will change. So of course, in American English, you can say, I took a shower. Would you like to take a bath? Take a wash. These are perfectly acceptable in both British and American English, but of course, you will find these collocations more commonly in American English. Resting again, you can say take a sleep, take a vacation, take a holiday, take a rest, take a nap. And you will hear this in British English. I would suggest that take sounds more like an imperative. It's more like you're suggesting somebody does something. Why don't you take a rest? You look exhausted. Now with transportation, we can use take, and this is both British and American English. So you can take the car, take the bus, you can take a walk, you can take a taxi or take a cab in American English. You can take a plane, take the train. All of these are referring to transportation. You can also use take with responses or action. So take action, take charge. He took charge of the situation. He took control of the situation. You can take a decision, although often I would say that make is more common, but take a decision may be a little bit more formal and used more in business English. You can take responsibility for something. It was me. I crashed the car. I take responsibility. You can take a chance, or you could even take a risk. So something that could potentially be dangerous. He took a risk and gambled all his money. We also use take with time. So if something is a long period of time, we might say it took me ages to finish my homework. You could also use seconds. It'll take a few minutes. It might take a week or so. There are lots more collocations besides, and I'm going to give you just a few of those now. We can also use take again like have with some nouns that are formed from the verb. Take a look at this. Let's take a walk. Why don't we take a swim? Again, this is more common in American English than British, but again, it doesn't change the meaning. So that's the great thing about these collocations. But be careful, some nouns can only go with have and take, and it is important to learn these. I'll put a copy in the comments section below for you if you want to copy them so you can try remembering them. So have, let's have a look. We would say, have a good time, have fun, have a laugh, have a party, have a barbecue, have a talk, have a chat, have a discussion, have a conversation, have a word with someone, if there's an issue you have that you need to discuss. Have a baby, have a problem, have difficulty with something. Have trouble. I've had a lot of trouble with our builders recently. They're driving me crazy. You can have a relationship, you can have an excuse. If you have a grudge against someone, it means you're holding something against them. They've done something to upset you and you haven't forgiven them yet. You can have work. I have so much work to do. You can have a breakdown. A nervous breakdown. You can have a headache, a toothache. You can have a stomach ache. In fact, any kind of ache would be have, but those are the most common you would hear. Ooh, earache. You can have an earache. Take. You can take care of someone. You can take a decision or make a decision, but take might sound a bit more decisive and businesslike. You can take exercise. Again, I would say do is probably more commonly used, but you will hear take exercise. You can take notes. In class, you might take some notes. Remember transport, take a flight, take a taxi, take a car, take a walk, take a bus, transport. Take a look, take a bite, also have a bite, have a look. Take an exam, have an exam. Not much difference in meaning there. Take a photo, take a picture. You can take a risk, you wouldn't have a risk. You can take an interest in something. If you take an interest, again, it has a different meaning to have an interest. To take an interest shows that you're making an effort to be interested in something that you might not have been already. But if you have an interest, it's usually pre-existing. So I took an interest in football, trying to impress my boyfriend. There are lots more besides, and you can find a list of those below in the comments section. So that is have and take. Collocations are a fantastic way of building your vocabulary range and making sure you sound much more natural in English. Why don't you practice in the comments box below? Use some expressions with have and take your time. Make sure that you have understood the lesson and that you can use some of these collocations in English. I'll correct your sentences below. And remember, these delexical verbs are everywhere. Get, give, make, do. Don't just try and learn the collocations with have and take. There are many more besides, and this will help you build your vocabulary much, much faster. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this lesson and have taken an interest in learning collocations. Bye.